Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to today's explainer, From Junk to School, How Your Old Laptop is Closing Nepal's Digital Divide. You know, we hear the word sustainability tossed around a lot, right? And usually it's about recycling plastic bottles or, I don't know, planting trees. But today, we're going to look at the data and explore something totally different. We're tracking the absolute hero's journey of something you probably haven't thought twice about, a retired corporate laptop. We're going to literally trace its technical journey from just being forgotten junk in a drawer to becoming a lifeline that's actively closing the digital divide. By the end of this explainer, you are going to see exactly why circularity isn't just some corporate buzzword. It's a profound social mission.
But before we fly across the globe, I want you to picture your own workplace, or honestly, even your house. Does your office have that one e-waste corner just gathering dust? You definitely know the one I'm talking about. It's full of tangled chargers, outdated smartphones, those massive old laptops that take like 10 minutes just to boot up. Most of us just toss them in there and leave them, mostly because we aren't quite sure what else to do with them. It's very much an out-of-sight, out-of-mind situation, right?
Well, that brings us to our very first myth to bust. There's this super common assumption that hoarded tech is perfectly safe just sitting around in a storeroom. But the facts from our sources, they paint a completely different picture. Hoarding old electronics is actually a massive corporate liability. Seriously, those aging lithium-ion batteries, they're a documented fire hazard. The old hard drives, basically a ticking data breach risk. And maybe the most tragic part for the environment is that every single day that old technology sits idle, it loses its upcycle potential. It's quite literally a wasted resource just trapped in your IT closet. Now, let's zoom out for a second to really grasp the global scale of this problem. 62 million. That's the number of metric tons of e-waste generated globally in just the year 2022 alone. I mean, that is a staggering figure. Experts in the sector are literally calling this a tsunami of e-waste. Our reliance on tech is growing exponentially, and so is the tidal wave of discarded hardware we're leaving behind. But, you know, massive global numbers can sometimes feel a bit abstract. So let's ground this in a very specific real-world context.
So the crucial point is how this plays out on a local level, specifically over in Nepal. In 2023, Nepal generated 42,000 tons of electronic waste. To put that massive number into perspective for you, that is the equivalent weight of 7,000 elephants. Think about that. Managing that sheer volume of e-waste would be a monumental challenge absolutely anywhere. But in a landlocked country like Nepal, the stakes for the local environment and public health are just incredibly high.
And the reason those stakes are so high really comes down to exactly how this waste is processed. Right now, a whopping 95% of e-waste in the region is handled by the informal sector. And how are they extracting the valuable metals? Well, unfortunately, it's often through hazardous, open-air burning. This releases highly toxic fumes straight into the air and leaches heavy metals right into the soil. Now, contrast that with the formal sector alternative, which relies on scientific handling and careful material segregation. This isn't just about saving the environment. It's about providing a formal, safe alternative that protects actual workers from daily toxin exposure and stops the severe contamination of local groundwater. We desperately need a just transition to the formal sector.
Section 1. Mining the urban landscape.
And this brilliantly illustrates where the story shifts. It goes from this looming environmental crisis to a massive opportunity. And this is where the transformation of our discarded corporate laptop truly begins, all thanks to Nepal's first dedicated e-waste facility, Doko Recyclers. Check this out. They know that 1 ton of smartphone printed circuit boards contains up to 100 times more gold than a ton of actual mined gold ore. Let that sink in for a second. 100 times more. By viewing e-waste not as toxic trash, but as a highly valuable urban mine, facilities can recover critical metals locally. This drastically reduces the need for destructive traditional mining, completely flipping the economic model of waste management on its head.
So how exactly does a facility like Doko extract this value safely? Well, they do it through a highly strict IT asset disposition, or ITAD process. Before a single screw is even touched, they prioritize secure data destruction following rigorous NIST 888 protocols, which is essentially the absolute gold standard for erasing digital footprints. This guarantees that any sensitive corporate data is completely wiped, protecting the company's reputation and completely solving that data breach risk we talked about earlier. Only after the data is totally destroyed do they move on to the manual dismantling and finally the material recovery and refurbishment.
But dismantling isn't just about striking gold. It's also about isolating the dangers. Specifically, we're talking about extracting hidden poisons like lead, mercury, and cadmium. The formal dismantling process allows highly trained teams to carefully extract these hazardous materials. By managing them through proper scientific channels, these specific toxins are successfully diverted away from local landfills, which means they are kept entirely out of Nepal's pristine soil and vital river systems.
Section 2. Tech's Second Life, Closing the Digital Divide.
This brings us to what is really the emotional climax of our explainer today. Because look, as vital as safe recycling is, true sustainability is anchored by one really powerful guiding philosophy. The most sustainable electronic device is the one that's already been made. At forward-thinking facilities like Doko Recyclers, they operate on a strict hierarchy. And in that hierarchy, repair and refurbishment always come first. Before they ever break down a laptop to harvest its metals, they look for literally every possible way to give that technology a second life.
And this philosophy actually comes to life through the RRR project, which stands for Recover, Refurbish, and Reuse. This is the exact moment where that retired corporate laptop from the beginning of our story experiences its glorious rebirth. The RR project takes all those high-level circular economy buzzwords we've been discussing today and transforms them into a tangible, deeply human social mission. It perfectly bridges the gap between corporate waste management and real community empowerment.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer human impact behind the process, and it all comes down to this incredible number, 206. Through the RRR project, 206 fully refurbished devices were recently distributed to empower under-resourced rural classrooms across Nepal. Just imagine that journey for a second. A laptop that was sitting totally dead in a dusty corporate drawer in Kathmandu, deemed completely useless, is recovered, securely wiped of its data, fully refurbished, and then placed directly onto the desk of a student in a rural community. That very same device is now opening up a whole world of digital education and connection for a child who otherwise wouldn't have had access. That is the true incredible power of giving tech a second life.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a bit of a provocative question to think about. What is the true upcycle potential of the junk sitting in your IT closet right now? Because as we've seen today, it isn't just trash. It's a potential gold mine. It's a totally solvable environmental hazard. And most importantly, it could be the exact tool a student needs to change their future. So it's time to take action. Rethink your e-waste, clear out those dusty corners, and become part of this amazing just transition. Thank you so much for joining me to explore the data and the incredible human stories behind it. I really hope this completely changes how you look at your old tech.